NIO looks like it is going to come in with a new monthly delivery record. On the NIO side of things, 4,200 is the number. That's for the insurance registrations for the week of October 21st through the 27th. And then on the side of the sub-brand, the newly released Onvo had 1,200 in this week. Now, this data does not come from NIO, so asterisk on that. However, tracking the data and for a bigger picture overview, we had an estimate of about 15,500 coming into this week. So now with this roughly 5,400 number, NIO already over 20,000, trending in the direction of a new monthly delivery record. Here's what I'll be thinking and watching for at the end of the week when we get the data is NIO going to be able to deliver over 20,000 NIO premium vehicles again? That would be quite a feat, and I think a very exciting thing if we can continue that trend into the end of year when Onvo will continue to ramp. I switched over to the BMW, Mercedes, and Audi retail volume trends for the weekly data just to kind of see a comparison. I'm hoping, and this is what I'll be kind of watching late next year, to see where these numbers are on the weekly side for the German brands that NIO is competing with in that premium price range, that sort of, let's say 40,000 USD and above price range. That's my thinking, is we should see fewer of these sales and more sales on the NIO side next year around this time. So that's kind of one of the things I'll be tracking in the midterm. But now let's talk a little bit about the data and the fails to deliver. I was hoping we would have updated data, and for date and timestamp, it's Tuesday, October 29th, 2024 in the morning as I'm recording this, and we didn't get the data yet. I will come back with the video once we get that data, the updated data. It's all trail lagging data. This is one of the reasons NIO stock is pretty much impossible to predict in the short term, is we never have a sense of what's going on in the background with things like potential naked shorting. And here's a kind of simplified overview. This is the entire chart. The yellow represents the price action for NIO stock, of course, rocketed up into the 2020 timeframe of that era, and then was brought back down, perhaps in part at least from the fails to deliver, which could have been naked shorting. Those represented by the white lines. And early on, if you'll notice, such a heavy amount of the fails to deliver, perhaps indicating naked shorting going on with a low stock price. But then the stock price took off and it acted like a meme stock. And I do think that some investors, maybe big money, are treating it like that. And that could be dangerous for them. At some point, they may get torched again, because this has never been a meme stock play for me. This has always been about NIO being an IDE, an innovative driven enterprise. I believe long-term, the exponential growth for the company will be reflected in the stock price, but I have no idea about the time frame on that. So along the way, I'm trying to learn, study, and share a little bit of what I'm watching. As we've seen the NIO stock price come back down over these last 3 years, we've seen an increase with the fails to deliver. At the same time, we've seen volume drop off on the daily side of things. So with that interest, maybe from investors, both retail and big money, being less interested, I'm just wondering what happens moving forward. I chose two little kind of time frames to drill into and look at. And by the way, I pay for this data. This is why I don't share the chart exchange data. But to get the full history, to be able to drill in like this, I pay a little bit every month. So I had somebody ask about that, so I wanted to share that. In any event, this is back in 2020. Now, a couple things that I'm thinking about. One, we see the price action over here, and this would have been about early November in 2020, with the price action in the $38 to $42 range. The daily trade volume on that day was over 300 million. It's just a random day I picked, but you see the difference in the price range. Say when we come back to, let's go right here. And the reason I chose this is we had a drop off of the fails to deliver in this couple months time frame from roughly 8/31. This is the end of August in 2020. If that was kind of the drop off from the fails to deliver, and again, right here, we had a fail to deliver spike back in July of about 3 million shares that couldn't be located. So I'm just thinking concept overview. Does this play in? Is this something we can track even retroactively within a month or so? And that's why I wanted to share it. And it's just something I'm kind of thinking and watching as I'm always kind of nerding out on things. You see the depressed stock price action while these fails to deliver are in play in that short term from about early July into early September. But then as we get a little further out from this last sort of drop off from the fails to deliver, you see the stock price move up quite a bit. Now, here's where it was on that day this would have been a little over 1 million shares that could have been located. That was the end of August 31st. On that day, over 230 million shares were traded, and the stock price was between $16 and $19. So how interesting, right? That within just a couple of months, you see the fails to deliver drop off and you see the price more than double, right? I mean, that's just crazy. But that's the potential of the stock. And knowing that, I wanted to just kind of pull some of this data and look at it and just say, all right, let's see if we can recognize any trends. Now, here's the recent data. Now, as I said earlier, we don't have the most updated data, but what I've done is I've gone from August 1st of 2024 into and through September 27th. And what's interesting is we're starting to get a little bit of an uptick with the price, even with the fails to deliver still being high. And relatively speaking, look, big picture concept overview, that's what I'm thinking is we've got August 1st and August 2nd of 2024. And on those days, if we had 2.5 million shares and almost 3 million shares, and then later on, and you see that the price just down and down and down. And then over here, August 26th, you've got another 1.75 into August 30th, September 3rd, September 4th. You've got, over 1.5 million on those days and another 2.25. This is a lot of potential naked shorting that could be happening. And so with the fact that the stock price is still trying to move up, I'm just really curious what the most recent data is going to show us, if anything. And this is a shout out also to a couple people who had asked if we could kind of drill into some of this more recent data and see what happens. And if we can see any trend from the NIO stock price, relative and with respect to when those fails to deliver, were up and present and versus where the stock price actually started moving. Here's the bigger picture. If we move out a little bit more, this was the one that caught my attention. Over 6 million shares on a single day. And that was back in July. Now, I don't have any idea if there's about a 2-month window on these or not. But if that's the case, then how interesting that even after this, you had another day right in that same week, it looks like, of almost 3.5 million shares. That's a whole lot. That's over 10 million shares that couldn't even be located on those days. And who knows how much more of a backlog there was. And that's why I think it's so hard to try and accurately predict anything in the super short term with NIO. But with that, those obviously, big numbers on the fails to deliver side down within, the next month or two, you've got lows coming in. Those are the recent lows for NIO. If we come back here and look at the other recent lows, what are we going to see? Oh yeah, 5 million shares failed to deliver spike. And before that, the price was a little higher. Interesting, right? Almost like these things might be correlated. Hey, call me crazy. I've been called worse. I'm not going to worry about it either way. I will keep nerding out and sharing some of what I'm watching and tracking and thinking along the way. This has always been and will remain a long-term play for me. I'm so excited about the company and what they're doing position-wise. And long-term, it's an IDE, innovative-driven enterprise. I think those companies can have the biggest upside potential and exponential growth. And I do think that they get heavily shorted early on until they get to profitability. And then you see sometimes those stock prices just rocket. And we've seen it with Netflix. We've seen it with Amazon. We've seen it with NVDA. We've seen it with Tesla. What's the other one? There's another one I can't. Apple. Yeah. So I love what the company is doing. Never been more confident about the company. In the short term, it's on the ticker at the bottom, and I'll keep it there until we have a clear trend of, I think we're going to see upward potential stock price movement for NIO, but I don't know if we'll see it by the end of the year. I would say, if I had to guess, if you made me guess, I would say, yeah, we're going to see it before the end of the year, but we may need to wait until after the US election and after China has really, really laid out big stimulus that I think will later be reflected by buyers, consumers, users in China heading into 2025. So how much and how high do you think the NIO stock price can go before the end of the year? I want to hear from you. I'm not trying to make any predictions. I'm too busy nerding out, but I want to hear from other people. Call it out. What do you think we could see? And if you want a couple dates to toss in there, I do think we'll get NIO earnings probably within December 5th through the 10th. that time frame that's consistent with what they've done recently. I always watch for NIO to report that on their site, because Wall Street and almost everyone else gets it wrong trying to predict other dates. But NIO is pretty consistent with what they've done the last quarters, and that seems like the time frame that makes the most sense. Also, NIO will be ramping up with Onvo deliveries. The goal is 10,000 in a single month in December. This was going to be a slow ramp. They were very clear about this, so I'm not sure why I see some folks who I guess weren't paying attention, didn't understand that, or didn't get that clarity from William Lee and the folks over at NIO, who made it pretty clear that they were going to slowly ramp Onvo with the deliveries. But I'll just keep tracking all that as we get the data. Very excited for what lies ahead, especially in 2025 and beyond. Wow, thanks for sticking around to the end. I think there was something else I was going to say, but I forgot. So I'm just not going to worry about it. Have a great day. I'll see you all again very soon.